let's see what it looks like. Close out YouTube on your phone and then re-pull it up.
There it goes.
All right. Plug my phone in, please. This is gonna drain its battery like a motherfucker. And hey, you know what? Because I have an unlimited hotspot. Oh. So this might solve our problems for the future. So let us know when the audio is back up, and we'll crack at it again.
You know what you should do though? Do you guys have an Instagram?
Yes.
Go live.
I will. When we get the audio back up, I'll tell you why we don't do that. I will tell you why.
Okay, I'm about to go live. Shit.
Yeah. Fuck it, dude. You go right ahead. All right. Is the audio showing? Okay, so here's why I don't use Instagram or Facebook or TikTok is a mess. But the reason I don't use those is because the main service that allows you to do it is it's not Ustream. It's I'm losing the name. But there's a service that you use where what you do is, so from our software on the computer, it routes all of the audio and the video to this website's servers. They house it, and it shoots it out to wherever you want. But the issue is the base subscription is like $50 a month, but for like enhanced connectivity and all that nonsense, it's like up to $75. And I don't do this enough a week, and I don't get paid enough to where that service, on top of all the other subscription services that I use to keep this podcast running, it justifies it. On top of all the other bills I have and so on and so forth. So it's not in the budget for the podcast right now.
Right.
But that's why I don't, because I would love to.
Well, after this episode, it will be.
Yeah.
I'm just playing.
So it's one of the things that you put in your questionnaire, and I think it's the first time I've actually referenced the questionnaire in conversation.
Really?
For any episode, yeah. But it stood out to me. Because we've already talked about you coming here, experiencing what it's like, and the differences in culture, and just the mindset of people. Being black in Albuquerque, because you said the statistic was what? Like, yes. How much of a percentage?
1.7.
Exactly.
But I checked in 2021. We're filming in May of 2023. I do want to make that clear.
I can't imagine it's gone up a ton.
Me neither.
But what does that, like, do you see that reflected in your day-to-day life?
Yes, absolutely.
How so?
So let's see. One of the first people that I really became close to here, we met because I was shopping at a store and he was working the cash register there. And he was like, he just asked me, because I was buying something and it was really cute, but it was slightly damaged. So I was like, bitch, I'm not going to pay full price.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you mean? Like, I want it, but where that discount at? Like, come on. And so he was like, let me call my manager. So in waiting for his manager to come up to the register, we had some time to talk to each other. Yeah. And he was like, are you new here? Just straight up. Just was like, are you new here? I was like, yeah. Like, do I just reek of that or something? Like, what the fuck? And we actually ended up becoming like really good friends. Yeah. And so later on, I asked him, I was like, why did you ask me if I was new here? And he was like, because of the way you dress and you're black. And I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And then same goes with actually the person who coined me T-Baby. I don't know if I should give him a shout out because he got a really big fucking ego.
This isn't the biggest podcast either, so.
I mean, I'm just saying. He got a big... I'm just going to leave his name out the mix, but Nicotine knows who he is. But anywho, I went. So there's this saloon here. Here.
With dirty bourbon.
Yes.
Oy.
And so one of my friends from work was like, "Oh, I'm going to this bar." She said bar. I Googled it. Google said saloon, bitch. Fuck, what the fuck? I was like, what the fuck am I gonna fucking do? So she was like, I'm going to this bar. You should come. So, I got dressed for the bar and then Googled the address, saw it said saloon. Got undressed and fucking redressed again because I wasn't trying to get motherfucking hate crimed, bitch. What the fuck? Fuck you, me.
Jesus Christ.
So I had to fucking put on my fucking slim fit jeans because I couldn't wear my goddamn skinny jeans and my fucking cowboy hat.
Oh, I've seen many a Slim Jean and fucking dirty bourbon in the total of 4 times that I've been there.
Well, listen. So I had to get redressed, and I went there, and while I was waiting in line, it was my first time there. While I was waiting in line, the person ahead of me, who, I love him now. He's the person that called me T-Baby originally, but the person ahead of me turned around in line and was like, "Are you new here?"
You just got people left and right telling you that.
Looking like this. Are you new here?
Jesus Christ.
And I'm like, oh my God. Like, they finna find me swinging from a tree, bitch. And I was like, I said, what the fuck is your, like, why would you just turn around and ask me that? Like, what makes you ask that? So I put him in the hot seat. He was like, nah, like, I come here all the time. I ain't never seen you here. I'm like, oh yeah, like, how could you tell that you've never seen me?
I gotta ask, was he black as well?
No.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
No, he wasn't fucking black. God, fuck. I wouldn't have been fucking offended if he was fucking black.
Jesus Christ.
And, but it ended up being really good. He turned around once we got to the front. He was like, let me pay for you to get in. So he got me in and, he bought me 2 drinks and 2 shots and we've been friends ever since, But it's just the fact that little things like that, like these are people I would say they were friends or at least friends at one point, right? And they could tell that I was new to this area simply because of how I looked and how I dressed and, things like that.
Yeah.
And so, when I first moved out here, I asked the people that were telling me to move out here, I was like, is it racist there? And they were like, no, it's not racist. Like, it's totally chill. Like, nothing's ever happened. And, racism is, how do I say this? So I know, like, when we say racism, right, like, we think of, like, the KKK, you might think of, like, segregation. You might think
like
of
more organized things that are actively oppressing people.
Not even organized, but you might think of something more hateful.
Okay.
More blatant, more more aggressive, outright. Like, I hate you because you're XYZ, right? Yeah. But racism actually comes in many different forms, right? And so these people who are now my friends, as I've said, they were well-intentioned. In the grand scheme of things, it was an innocent question, Yeah. Are you new here is an innocent question, right? Yeah. But they made the assumption that I was new here based on my race, right? So in a sense, that is racism, right? An assumption was made based on race. Yeah. That is racism.
I think that opens the door to the conversation of, is all racism
bad?
Yeah, bad. Yeah, like, is all racism ill-intentioned?
And now this is where I will start picking it apart, right? Because I think, racism is a very strong word. Yeah. So I think we have no choice but to recognize it as ill-intentioned.
No, and that's not to take away from literally the 99.9, of it that is horrible. Right. I've never heard it phrased that way.
Right. I know. And so what I'm talking about is commonly referred to as prejudice, or prejudicial, which means judgment made without facts to back it up.
Right.
Prejudicial, right?
Yeah.
So, but prejudice and racism, they do go hand in hand, right? Because they're kind of based on the same premise, if you will.
No, yeah.
But that's not the point. And and I don't want to paint the picture like these are like bad people.
No, again, like you said, it was an innocent question.
Exactly.
But right.
But I'm one of those people. I grew up around nothing but white people. Like I said, I grew up in the cornfields. So all my friends growing up was white. I've heard racism called, all types of ways. I've been called the N-word, like all types of stuff like that. So I kind of have, I don't want to say the thickest skin when it comes to that, but at least a bit of an understanding. And I like to think I have enough patience to be able to deal with it, to be able to step back and reflect before reacting. So I was able to, but in the grand scheme of things, that is what it was, right? And what I'm trying to get to is, being black out here is so crazy because you walk into a place and I forgot what you said earlier. I wanted to reference it, but I've had a lot of this water. And I can't remember what it was, but you said you walked into a place and like heads turned.
Oh no, yeah, like I walked. So my uncle, at the time, he had worked. He was like the co-manager or whatever of a pawn/gun store, and he's like, "Hey, here's the address. Come over." I literally just like gotten into town. Yeah. And so I walked in, and it was like SpongeBob and Patrick walking into the fucking Salty Spittoon in the SpongeBob movie, and everyone turned around. He's like, "Oh, those are the Goofy Goobers."
Oh my God.
And so I walked into a room full of white people.
Yes.
And again, I'm not the brownest Mexican out there, but compared to all of them,
right,
I might as well be south of the border.
Absolutely.
And so it took me this is a true story. It took me walking to the counter, my uncle coming to me, and him like, so like we were talking like this, but he like looks up to the room and goes, "He's good."
Oh my God.
Like it took that.
That is so crazy.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
But then I also understood like that's just how it is down. Like so a mutual friend of ours, Dom, I remember he was telling us that he had gone down to Arkansas with an older friend of ours to meet with his mom or some shit, right?
Not a friend.
Not a friend anymore. No, not a friend anymore. He turned out to be a domestic terrorist, everybody. But long story. Not a good person. But they had gone down to visit our buddy Dom's mom, and they had gone on Tinder in the local town. The young single guys went on Tinder, met some girls, went to a party. Okay. And again, our Dominic is not a brown individual. He's got a little bit of tint to him, but he's not as brown as you could be as a fucking Spanish dude. But down there, you know what I'm trying to say, right? But down there, he's very separated. Yeah. But again, with his very slight complexion, they call to his face, like, "What are you, a spick?" Oh, like right to his face. Yeah. And again, he's in a party of all white people, so he was like, "Well, no, not really, Charles," but you know what I mean? Like he had to really play the field to. Yes. Yeah.
And say, well, we call that in the black. Well, I don't want to just say the black community, but when you have to play the field and blend in. It's called code
switching.
Yes, sir.
So I didn't know. So I first heard about code switch. So first of all, that's our no longer friend on the far left there.
Oh God. Is that a mugshot?
Yeah, remember when 20
pull up his Instagram.
No, fuck this dude. No, he doesn't have one. He doesn't have social media. He's not a good person. Like straight up, he was we all recognized him as not a good person, and our last person to say, "Hey, he's not good," was Dominic because he was so close to him. Oh shit! It was one of those situations. Okay, but no. So this guy, he, long story short, during the BLM riots protests, in Las Vegas turned into a fucking riot.
They weren't riots; they were protests.
Yeah. So during all of that in Las Vegas, him and these two other fucking idiots decided to roll up with Molotov cocktails and really horrible pipe bombs that never went off.
Pipe bombs?
Yeah, they never went off because they're retarded. And so,
can you say that on YouTube?
so they rolled up and they got caught by the FBI and they're locked. They're awaiting trial. But yeah, domestic terrorism, not a good person.
Not a good person.
Anyway,
fuck him.
I digress. Yeah, not a good person. Anyway,
yes.
Very much a fucking asshole.
Yes.
Anyway, so code switching. Yeah. So I had first heard about that term in the show Big Mouth because there's a whole episode about that.
I love Big Mouth.
And I did not know that was a real, actual thing in the African American community until he's now a good friend of mine, Robert Gibson. He goes by Buck D. He's, by my measure, the best fucking stand-up comedian in this city. He is so fucking hilarious. He brought that up when he came on the podcast about a year ago, and we talked about code switching and like what it meant to him because he came. Fuck, what state was he from? I know he came from the Midwest.
The Midwest?
Yeah,
Iowa.
I forget where. I forget where.
Ohio.
It's gonna fuck me up.
Indiana.
Indonesia. Is that what you about to say?
Fuck you, bitch. Fuck you.
But
I've
anyway.
been drinking this goddamn water.
But anyway, so did that play a role in you like coming to New Mexico, again figuring out your footing, like?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, there's very, 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 very little representation of black culture here.
Yeah.
Very little.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree.
Very little. I mean, minimal. And the rest that you guys get is from the media. So from the internet, from Netflix or Hulu.
It's very much
YouTube.
othered. It's like
it's othered.
the people over there,
but
right?
Then what I'm also trying to say is that it's over dramatized. It's overacted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I agree with that.
So I come from a place where there's black people of all kinds. Like what's portrayed here is like, oh, black people are ratchet. Black people are, black people are good for nothing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Where I come from, of course, like, yeah, there are black people like that, but there are also white people like that. There are Mexican people like that. There are Asian people like that.
There are humans like that that are just
humans.
not the best representation
that is a human trait.
Yeah.
Not every human can live up to a certain standard. And where I'm from, there are black people that talk like me, that dress like me, that think like me, etc. So it wasn't different for me. But when I come here, people are like, "Oh my God, you speak so well." I speak like a normal person.
You're just well spoken in general.
I'm just well spoken in general.
Yeah.
Oh my God, like you dress so well. I can't help but think that means like, oh, you're not sagging. You're not wearing like an oversized t-shirt.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? There's things like that.
No,
so, and I grew up. So I had a unique upbringing. I grew up very, very poor, very poor. There was a time in my point where I was homeless, right? And didn't have an address, had to sleep on just a mattress that we found in the dumpster. Took that, put it on my aunt's floor of her basement. And I slept there for months while I was going to school, right? But I was considered smart where I'm from. So I went to a gifted school. So the people that I went to school with, they lived in gated communities.
Right.
They were rich. Their mothers were oncologists and their fathers were engineers and lawyers and things like that. Things I couldn't even fathom.
Just being surrounded by money.
Yes.
Yeah.
It wasn't a fathom of my existence. But, I still went to that school because my parents wanted better for me. And
that's awesome.
In doing that, and being able to test into that school and go to that school, of course, like at a young age, you want to fit in. So to fit in, you learn how to act like other people. You learn how to talk like other people. You learn how to survive. And to survive with those people, you had to be a certain way. And I was able to be that way to fit in while hiding my deepest, darkest secret that, like, I feel like I've never really told anyone. And if I have, I could count them on one hand. So this would be like the widest I've ever broadcasted that in a sense, But to be able to fit in with them and to get into those gated communities, I had to be a certain way. It had to be acceptable. And that's where I learned code switching, and that's where I learned how to be something other than what is usually paralleled with the way that I look.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, for real. Yeah.
And that created a lot of trauma and a lot of other things later down the road, because then that was like in middle school. And fortunately things were like on an incline throughout high school. And then I got to college. Then when I got to college, the black population in college was like, oh my God, you talk white. Oh, you're too white. Oh, you don't know this movie. Oh, you don't know this song. Oh, you're not black for real. So then I had to battle with, oh my God, now I'm too white to be black. Now I'm too this to be that. So I had to learn how to get back to that blackness side of me, right? And then I was recruited for my job and then moved out here after after college. And so now I have these two sides of me. I have the of course, the code switching side where like I can blend in. It doesn't matter. I won't say my legal name on this motherfucking podcast, but my legal name, let me just tell you, is not John Smith. Okay.
Yeah.
It ain't got no apostrophes in it, but it's not. It's not John Smith.
Yeah.
So, to be able to have my name on those resumes, and I get called in for an interview, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're nothing like we expected." Oh my God, like
did you actually got that?
All the time.
I'll go fuck yourself.
All the time.
That's
yes.
so fucked up. Because I'm for the company that I work for, I'm a recruiter.
Oh yeah.
And I couldn't imagine telling someone that, regardless of whether their name is extremely one way or another. I couldn't imagine saying that.
All the time.
Not just because I could get in a shit ton of trouble, but I lose an applicant because I decided to be a racist?
Yes.
Like, let's be real, right?
Yeah.
So
but back at that time, I was like chasing a bag, so I was like, I'll let the racism pass if it comes with a little dollar sign in front of it. But I would get that, and and for my current job as well, I sit on the chair of recruitment as well, because I am a believer in the facilitator of change. And so I think that it takes people like me, and it takes people with my experiences to sit in positions of power and influence to be able to facilitate that change.
Yeah.
So now I'm the chair of that for my company. I sit in the chair of recruitment. I've recruited my committee, and it's the most diverse committee that you could think of. Like we're predominantly female. We have Asians. We have Middle Easterns. We have Black people. We have Hispanics, of course. Like we have, all types of people. We have Native Americans. We have all type of people from all different backgrounds sitting on my committee that I handpicked because I am the believer in the facilitator of change. And I come from that background where I, could, as little as my name, opportunity could be prevented, or and there an obstacle could be placed in front of my opportunity just because of my name. So I had that white side, and then I had the black side where I was trying to overcompensate, where I learned like people were giving me shit because they're like, oh, you're not black enough, you wouldn't fit in at this party, oh, like you're not gonna like the food here. Oh, like I don't think that this is gonna be your thing. Whatever, because that it does go both ways. I hate to admit it, but it does. And so I
think that's something that's not talked about or projected enough. Mm-hmm. Like you'll find it in some pieces of media, but the idea that not just Black people, but just because I've experienced it with Mexicans. Yes. I've experienced it with white people, like how a predominantly, like just we're in, how I say it, like an area where it's only like a party. Yes. Perfect example. Yes. Where it's only one race of people and there's someone there that's a mix of two. Mm-hmm. They are alienated because they're not Black enough, Mexican enough. They're not whatever enough. That's a very real thing.
It's very real.
Yeah.
And it speaks to like the conformity of society, of course, and like how many times people have to be something that they're not, or etc., just to fit in and just to survive, and to feel a sense of community.
Well, that's a human thing going back tens of thousands of years.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we just came from tribes, we came from small villages, we came from these communities of 50 to 200 people, whereas like if you're outside of this, you get killed. Mm-hmm. So that's very much in our DNA. And now because of this is like one of the only optimistic sides of me. What we hope to be contradicts that.
Yes, I would agree.
And that happens every day from the most minimal thing to the most extreme.
Yes.
Whether it's, I had no idea you'd be this well spoken, all the way to you can't fit in here because you're not whatever enough. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
110%. And I really liked how you said what we hope to be, because I'm on that side as well, whether if it's foolishly optimistic or not.
Yeah.
There are so many things that I think this country has to work on, and people really need to reflect on and retrospectively think within themselves about their certain ideologies or conclusions that they jump to without any credentials to back it up.
Yeah.
100%. I do think that the overall vibe of the country is that we're trying to move to a more progressive place. But there are these things and these really, really, really tough conversations that we have to have in order to get there. And I'm not really one of those people that's going to avoid it, because I was fortunate, and yes, I say fortunate, enough to see both sides of it. I was able to grow up, and it almost touches on, what I was saying about how I feel like, the Albuquerque mindset is a bit underdeveloped, and like people only think like Albuquerque is what it is.
It's very closed off.
It's very closed off. I was fortunate enough to grow up to where I was right there. I could touch the other side. I could see the other side. I could feel the other side. I could smell the other side.
Yeah.
They were my best friends.
Yeah.
I was let inside the gate. I didn't live there, but I was still let in, and I was able to see what more there was. Yeah. And so it fueled me with this thirst of ambition and success and thriving and passion. And I was just like, there has to be more than where I come from. And I think that on a broader scale, that's absolutely the case, with the country. I mean, I love speaking up. I mean, I was in the protests during the Black Lives Matter protests, particularly in 2020, but it spanned years.
Yeah.
Particularly in 2020, I was in those protests. I was a speaker. When I was in college, I got a role as a student governing senator, and I spoke on behalf of the minority population and trying to speak on their rights and equality and equity, which we don't talk about enough. But I am absolutely on those sides where like I am advocating, but I can also speak to the fact that I do see the progress that has been made. But, for those that say like, and I know this isn't even the conversation, and after this we need to talk about something way hotter. But for those that say like, oh, like, racism doesn't exist, like we had a black president, or I'm not racist, it's just a preference, like I just whatever, blah blah blah. No, like you have to address that. You have to take it for what it is. Racism is very much alive and well, and I have experienced it in moving to Albuquerque. And while it wasn't the type of racism where, you imagine me picking cotton out of a plantation or...
I can't say I've imagined that, but I get what you're going for.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not the type of race. Yeah. Like, I'm not picking
like the
cotton.
Extremes. Like
I'm
the
not
extremes.
Hanging from a tree. I'm not sitting at the back of a bus. I can use the same water fountain as you.
Yeah.
Because that's what we think of as racism, right?
And it
that's
wasn't
what's in
that
the
long ago.
But racism can be very minute.
Yeah.
Racism can be so minute that it becomes a nuance. And it becomes a way of saying, oh, you speak so well. I didn't expect that from you.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, for real.
Oh, you dress so nicely. I didn't expect. Well, what are you really saying, And so, and then we'll move on. But I've experienced that level of racism, right? Which is still racism, and it's still
No, it is. Yeah.
challenges people to really try to expand your perspective. Don't take what you see on the internet or what you see in media or what you hear in songs as the real life fact.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that, it's just a portrayal. It's not actual reality. So, anyway, let me get off of my high horse.
I wouldn't say it's a high horse. I'd say that you're speaking to your experience.
Yes. I mean, but like I said, those people that where we came from, they ended up becoming, my best friends. And I've met a lot of the greatest people you could ever meet here. But there is still a way to go. Yeah. And I've learned that from being black in the 505.
No, I agree. There is a long way to go. No, I agree. And so there's a lot of things that come to mind. Yes. Okay, so representation.
Yes.
Because I feel like, again, from my perspective and a perspective of a lot of people that I know, I am not against having predominantly black characters in film, in movies, like TV shows. Like, it does not fucking bother me. Like, my biggest thing that really like angered me was, I'm not going to go on a soapbox about it because I've talked about it enough, but with the recent iteration of, if you haven't noticed, I'm a nerd. The recent iteration of the Justice League. When Justice League came out in 2017, there was the original director. He spoke out and he was like, my version of the movie had Cyborg as the heart of the film. Okay. Cyborg is a black character. Okay. Always has been a black character. The guy who portrayed him in the film, Ray Fisher, an amazing actor. And the director who was like, hey, that's my heart of the movie. Not this nonsense you saw in the theater. My version of it had him. Flash forward to 4 years later, his 4-hour version comes out, and sure enough, that is the heart of the movie, a black character. And as between that 3.5, 4 years between the bullshit version and the real version came out, there were these leaked conversations from these studio heads. And the long story short of it was, we didn't want an angry black man at the center of our film. Oh. So I heard that. I remember reading that. I'm like, wow, that's like, I knew about racism in film. I knew about like the lack of representation, but to have that as a conscious thought, that's fucked up. So then I see this 4-hour version of Justice League with a black character as the heart of the movie, which he is by all definition. It's quite beautiful. And like the culmination of the Justice League winning like the final battle is dependent on him. And the way they portray it is it's beautiful. So I see that as a representation of an African American in the film, as it wasn't forced, it wasn't just to check a box like a studio head said, we need a a person of color, so we're gonna whatever, so we do that. I look at a representation like that, I'm like, that doesn't feel forced. It's not like shoved down somebody's throat. It's like, we care. Us as a studio, we care. You know what I mean? But then, the mass public sees something like The Little Mermaid. That's been in hot water, no pun intended. That's been in hot water for that really wasn't, for 3 years. Yes. 2 years when they announced that Ariel was being played by an African American. Me personally, I was like, I don't really give a shit. She's a mermaid. Yes. It does feel forced because every other supporting character is still white, except for King Neptune. Yeah. That's played by Hispanic, Javier Bardem. But every other supporting character that could be in that movie is still white. Okay. Except for Ariel. Yeah. And that's where it feels forced. Like, I don't mind, but if you really care about representation and in my opinion, because I love film, I was in film school, I want to continue film school, but I truly love film. I feel like if you really want to get representation going, every film should be, unless you're like Fast and Furious, you should be shooting for the Oscars, right? Like eventually, right? Eventually, as a filmmaker, you want to be in the Oscars.
Yes.
The Fast and Furious ain't making it. I'm sorry, they are not making it to the Oscars. But you'd want to have maybe, whether they're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever. You'd want to see your lead male, female, supporting female, whatever representation. You would want to see them in that Oscar category. Excuse me, regardless of their skin color.
Yeah.
So when there's these movies, and more often than not, they're reboots, they're reboots and the main character is a person of color, to me, and to the internet apparently too, that feels hyper forced. And I look at that and I'm like, I see what you're trying to do as a studio. And I'd like to believe you have the best of intentions, but the cynic in me says, you're only doing this for money. And in my opinion, it feels like you're exploiting not only a moment in culture where a leading role being portrayed by a person of color is hot, but a societal moment where they're crying out for that with the best of intentions. You're exploiting that for money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Probably.
So what I want to ask is, when you see stuff like that, do you feel represented? Like, for real? Like, do you feel like it is genuine? Like, it's like, oh, like, yeah, I grew up, like, again, for that example, like, I grew up seeing Little Mermaid and she was white. All right, whatever. But now as a person of color, I feel represented. Do you actually feel represented, or do you feel like they might be taking advantage of a situation?
I love that question.
Because I can't fully answer that because obviously I'm not black.
Yeah.
But I could only imagine, like, that's how it could come off.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm gonna give you my answer.
Yeah.
But because, like I said earlier, I'm an Aries, I'm gonna give you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
To make you argue.
Okay.
My answer to that question is yes, I do feel represented. The impact when Black Panther came out and it was played by Chadwick was just huge, know. And finally, around the country, so many Black children had characters that they could authentically dress up as for Halloween.
I agree. As a comic book dork, and like both of us, like, I thought Black Panther the film was okay. I had my issues with it, but like as a film, but the fact that finally we had, because I grew up, I'm not black, but I grew up reading about Black Panther.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, this dude's so cool. And just, I couldn't imagine what that was like for the black community, but I agree with that wholeheartedly.
It's things like that, and, getting more Black characters in these million and billion-dollar budget films and these blockbuster events. It definitely does open the doors, because at a time in history, and particularly film history, because I also studied, so I'm a photographer / videographer, so I studied film as well. And there was a time where, Black people only played a role of where they were supposed to be over-exaggerately ghetto, if you will.
Right.
Or, you know what I mean?
No, yeah.
So to be able to pull away from that, Black people are no longer the maid. They're no longer the butler. They're no longer the clown and the laughing stock of the film, which is the only role that they could get for decades, right? But instead now they're the protagonist. They're the hero. They're the people with the story that we want to follow. I absolutely think that the representation is felt amongst the community, There's still a ways to go.
Yeah.
Because it's so recent. Which leads me to my question for you.
Yeah.
Which is whether or not the Hollywood studios or industries are doing it for the sake of exploitation, because it's very cool to be inclusive now.
Yes. Yeah.
So whether or not they're exploiting us, right? What's the alternative?
The alternative to it.
What's the alternative?
I think so. I have an alternative to it, and so I'll use an example. I'm going to say this, and I have to fucking pee really bad. So here's my example.
Okay.
So I follow superhero films and the like the production of them, and like the rumors and the leaks and the what's going to happen and all that religiously, because again, I'm a fucking dork. Mm-hmm. So there was and it might be in production still, might not, but a Black Superman film. Mm-hmm. And I read that and I'm like, cool.
Okay.
All right, Superman. Okay, what version of Superman is it? Because the authors of the source material, they saw the need for a Black Superman, and they created a Black Superman.
Yes.
And they gave him a whole backstory, did him justice, didn't just do like, here's Black Clark Kent. No, they made him an entire character. Right. Gave him every justice. Like, does he have 70 years of history like Clark does? No, because he wasn't created back in the 1940s. Right. But guess what? They did that. They gave him no pun intended, but the justice he deserved. Yes. And now we have a Black Superman in the comic books called Val-Zod.
Oh, I thought his name was Clark Kente. Couldn't make me pee, bro. I've never seen Black men. I said, I know they named this nigga Black Clark Kente.
So I'm gonna say this, and Joe, if you want to pull him up while I go pee, I'd appreciate it. Because this is a great subject. Because I want to let this subject go as long as it needs to and close out. I'll show you what the bathroom is. We have two. In the ghetto, we have two.
Oh my God.
But no, so I hear about that and I'm like, okay, J.J. Abrams is going to produce it along with Michael B. Jordan. Yes. That's awesome. Yep. But again, in my opinion, if you're doing, and they confirmed it later to be the Val-Zod, the true, like the actual like Black Superman from the comic books. Mm-hmm. I think that's awesome because you're doing that character justice, you're doing the African-American community justice, and you're not, because for me, when it becomes forced is when Clark Kent becomes Black. He has never been a Black character. Yes. He's never been a Black character. It's never been that.
Yes.
And that's when it feels like not only are you exploiting a moment, you are now attacking white people, which is racism.
Okay.
I feel like that's creating racism because you already had the room to give a fully fleshed out African-American character to where you could be, again, it's all perception, right? Because they're trying to make money. The perception could be, because I hear the Ben Shapiros and the far right and the crazy, like the far right individuals like, you're attacking white people and you're taking away our Superman. I hear that argument already because I have friends like that. I hear that. I'm like, okay, don't do that.
Yeah.
But also, if you were to make Clark Kent Black, you're taking away from the already established Black Superman that has had, what, we're in 2023, so 12 years of history.
Okay.
You're taking away from that just so you could fill a quota. That's where I feel like it's filling a quota. Another example is Miles Morales' Spider-Man.
Okay.
Right?
This is what I wanted to talk about.
So, Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yes.
I'm going to say this and I'm going to pee.
Because I was about to pull this up. I got to pee too.
Yeah, so Ultimate Spider-Man is my favorite version of Spider-Man.
Okay.
In the comic books, the Ultimate Spider-Man started out with Peter Parker. He has his whole arc, dies because Green Goblin kills him.
Yes.
And then there's a need for a new Spider-Man. So the same writer who wrote the story wrote in Miles Morales, gave him a whole backstory. Admittedly, it's kind of a copy-paste, bit by a spider, but he was bit by a spider, but then he has his whole reason for being Spider-Man. And instead of his uncle dying, like Uncle Ben, his uncle actually becomes the Prowler, which is traditionally a Peter Parker villain, but in the Ultimate Universe is a villain, so that creates a whole nother dynamic that Peter never dealt with. Peter never had to deal with a blood family member becoming a villain. He dealt with Norman Osborn, who became Green Goblin as like a mentor, but his Uncle Ben died. He never became a villain. He died. But for Miles to deal with his uncle becoming the Prowler, that is a whole other dynamic that Peter never got to experience. Yeah. On that note, we're going to take a pause. Because I'm doing the pee-pee dance like I'm a 5th grader.
Do I have to sit here and entertain the audience, or can I also...
No, he's going to throw the loop up. We're going to pause.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good. I will show you what...
To know what it is, but it is delicious.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, dangerous, right?
Like chilled? Because if it's like room temperature like that, you could taste the alcohol a little bit.
A little bit.
But if that's chilled,
and they put on the box, you should have it frozen. Look, they say try it frozen.
That's an issue.
This isn't a fucking issue.
That's a problem, dude. That tastes so good.
Yeah, because I was like, I'm about to finish this, but I want y'all to try that. I stand by that shit.
Where'd you buy that?
It's at Speedway, the gas station, anywhere. Yeah, but they only
right.
Yes, right.
Right. That's a problem.
This little container is 11% alcohol. So if you have 2 or 3 of these, you're ready. Yeah, it tastes like fucking juice.
Yeah,
that's some good shit.
That fruit punch out of a can.
Yeah. All right, let me know when the audio's back up. We'll go for another 30 or 40.
Easy, been back up.
Hell
all right, cool. So so to wrap up what I was saying.
Yes.
Like, I feel like there in any media, really, I feel like there are already established characters that are of a minority, and if there's not, I think you would do justice again, okay, here's another great example. Yeah. So, so first of all, if you want to pull that up for the audience, Joey, so that's the Black Superman. That's Val Zod. He is of Earth 2, a bad motherfucker, and in the New 52 run, he's just a bad motherfucker. But that's what he looks like. Now look up Batwing. Yeah, Batwing. He came out in 2000, and I think they published him in 2016. No, 2011. Just kidding. Batman Incorporated 2000. Right, because Grant Morrison wrote him. Right. Okay, so 2011, and because at the time that's when it started coming out. Like, okay, inclusivity. We need to have more people of color represented, both in our comics, but our movies, and so on and so forth. And so they had again an already created character. Lucius Fox, who provides all the tech and stuff for Batman.
Yes.
If you saw the Christian Bale movies, that's Morgan Freeman.
Of course.
So in the comic books, Lucius Fox's son becomes Batwing.
Oh. Okay.
And so I look at something like that, and so what happened is Bruce Wayne in the storyline, he had a press conference and was like, "I'm Batman." Or no, I'm sorry, I'm financing Batman. I'm not Batman, but I'm financing all his tech. And we've decided to go international. So we're going to have a quote-unquote Batman in every major continent as well as every major country. So he dispatched, like there was a fucking Spanish Batman, an African Batman. There's all these different Batmans that went out around the world to help everybody. Because obviously, you have them all in Gotham, right? Or I guess too many Batmen in Gotham. So they sent them out, right? And so after they got rid of Batman Incorporated, they brought them all back, and the readers really loved Batwing because he's a bad fucking dude. He's like Iron Man and Batman mixed.
Oh my God.
So they kept him. And so I look at something like that, and I think you didn't have to take a pre-created character like a Bruce Wayne or a Peter Parker and just race swap. You had a pre-existing character that you elevated to like a status of an IP, like the something property. What does an IP stand for? Intellectual. The intellectual property, right? You've elevated them to that status of everyone knows who fucking Batman is. Yeah. Everyone knows who Superman is. Now we have a African-American Batman, an African-American Superman. And this doesn't feel like, to me, when I see that, it's not something that's forced. It doesn't feel like the studio heads are checking a box or the editors of the book are checking a box to say, oh, well, here's your person of color Batman. You happy now? No, like they did it justice. They left it to the creators and they did something that is still popular. Like that character is still in existence and in the canon, right? So you were going to bring up Miles Morales, and it's the same case, right? Created out of necessity, not only because our society was clamoring for it, but because the story needed it. New York will always need a Spider-Man, so therefore Miles Morales came out.
Yes,
and we now see that Miles Morales is synonymous with Peter Parker.
Yes,
which is mind-boggling to me because of how because I'm used to being that kid that I read comics and I was bullied for it, and I was he's the kid that reads comics, what a fucking dork. But now as all these movies were coming out, all my old friends were like, hey, what does this mean in this movie, or what's gonna happen next? And I'm yeah, I'm the motherfucker.
Bullshit, you're still a dork.
Oh, I'm still a dork. I am still a dork. Oh, I am a dork to the day I fucking die.
Fucking dork. Don't try to act
No, I'm a dork with knowledge, bro. But it's cool. It's so cool to see the mass populace accept these characters that I've been reading about.
Yeah.
And you brought up Black Panther.
Yes.
That's the perfect example.
Absolutely.
The perfect example. And I'm kind of shocked at how well Black Panther 2 came out.
Yeah.
I am shocked at how good that movie was.
I mean, well, I think a lot of it did have to do with Chadwick's death, of course. So that, a lot of people were curious, how is this going to go on without him, of course.
Yeah. But the girl that plays his sister stepped up to the fucking plate.
God.
Because I'll be honest, I wanted any of the Black Panther canon.
Yes.
Any of them but Shuri. I wanted M'Baku, Okoye.
Yes.
I would have loved her as a new Black Panther, but like, cause again, traditionally the one who does the tech does the tech.
Yeah.
Like that, like, yeah, she's great at the tech. Leave her at that.
Yep.
But that final showdown with Namor, oh my God, that was fucking dirty. Dirty. It was so good.
Oh my
It was
God.
so good.
Honestly, I won't even lie. Like, you really challenged my perspective with a lot of the stuff that you were saying, because the thing that I always say is like, you say leave the comic books as they were written. But a lot of these comic books were written by racist people, or they were written during a time where it wasn't common to see
I agree.
Protagonists of color.
So I agree with that. I agree because you're right. In the 40s and the 50s, it was not common to see a black character predominantly. Yeah. And what I will say, why I'm very like protective of these characters is like with Superman. Mm-hmm. Superman was written by two Jewish men.
What?
Yeah. So Jerry Siegel and was it?
Tip of your tongue.
Yeah. Find the other guy's name. But the two men that wrote Superman were Jewish people, and they created this larger than life character because at the time that Superman came out, World War II was happening, and obviously Hitler and the Third Reich, right? So they wrote Superman as a counteraction to that because, again, Superman didn't start out as like a traditional comic book. It was strips in the newspaper. And that's the same reason why we had, or why you saw like a Captain America came out, because, again, American propaganda, American type, like America's the best. Yeah. And then DC answered that, but with Wonder Woman. Again, someone that's a very strong, powerful figure, because Marvel already covered the men fighting on the war front, so then DC covered the women fighting, or not, well, fighting, quote unquote, but fighting, doing their part in the factories, making all the war machines and making all the weapons of war. Yes. So I agree. Like, they weren't creating black characters. Like, I think like the first Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, correct? Joe Shuster. So I think the first predominant black character in that type of medium was Luke Cage, right? Yeah. Was it Luke Cage? Right? Which, fun fact, is who Nicolas Cage based his last name off of. So the more you know. Yeah.
That's not Nicolas's last name?
No. So Nicolas Cage, his real name is oh my goodness. But his last name is like it's a huge family. Coppola. His last name is Coppola, like Francis Ford Coppola. Oh, okay. Yeah, so he's a part of a huge acting family in Hollywood. Yeah. But he didn't want to get roles based off of his last name, so he completely changed it. Oh, good for him. And made his own career.
And he's still a terrible actor.
You know what, dude? He is great for what he does. All right.
The name don't change shit.
Okay, so it was Black Panther. Okay, so Black Panther was the first.
1966.
Okay, but I'll bet Luke Cage is quick behind that.
But do you see that? But that's actually a really good example, right? Is like Black Panther came out in 1966.
It was decades after. Yeah.
How long did it take to get a movie?
Yeah.
How long did it take to get that representation?
Because the first major African American major superhero film was Blade in the 90s with Wesley Snipes, which that movie still fucks. I don't care what anyone has to say about it. The first Blade with Wesley Snipes is fucking amazing.
Yes, I would agree. And then, but I grew up on what is his name? It's oh my god. It was like a cartoon. I've never seen a live action make of him. But
Static Shock.
Boom.
Static Shock is the shit. And they are producing, allegedly, I don't believe a word out of James Gunn's mouth, but allegedly DC is making a Static Shock movie.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
I
agree.
1966 Black Panther was written. And how long did it take
to
get a movie for him? That's, let's see, it came out after 2016, so that's over half of a century.
Yeah.
It took to be comfortable enough to have a black actor on screen as the protagonist, where the industry, where Hollywood, where the box office felt confident that the citizens and the people of the world would buy a fucking ticket.
And it's in the $1 billion club.
It did, but how long did it take?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
So that's why, sometimes when it comes down to, like, are they exploiting us? They might be, because it is on trend to be inclusive. However, that nonetheless, I can't take away from the fact it's driving inclusive.
I agree.
Inclusivity. There's so many talented, phenomenal black actors and actresses and singers and dancers and anything you could think of that are out there.
They tend to lead entertainment.
Yes.
I'm just going to be honest.
But they're the lowest paid, or they're the lowest casted, or they bring in the least amount of revenue, etc., right? So now when you have these big Hollywood studios or these huge directors that are willing to say, you know what, I'm going to take a risk. I know Ariel is a white bitch with red fucking hair, but we finna strap a fucking maroon lace front on this hoe. Okay? We finna name this bitch Areola.
That's a huge reason why I like Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I respect the shit out of Jordan Peele because he was like, guess what? We've had the blaxploitation films of the late 60s, 70s, and the 80s.
Yes.
My horror films are going to predominantly feature black characters because it's lacking. And honestly, I saw that and I was like, you know what? Fair enough.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't hurt that the movies that he put out are fucking bangers.
They're bangers.
Like, I wasn't a huge fan of Nope. Like, I thought it was okay.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
Like, I thought it was okay, but it wasn't bad.
But Get Out, bitch.
Get Out. Oh, my God.
One of the highest rating box office films in history.
One of the biggest grossing horror films of all time.
What makes it so great... Well, Get Out's a little bit different. Get Out's a little bit different for what I'm about to say. But what makes his film so great is the race of the characters really doesn't matter. Which is the same...
I was going to say, with the exception of Get Out.
With the exception of Get Out. That's what I was saying. So, with the exception of that, the race of the characters, it really doesn't matter. And that's the same for all of the films in history, Like, Pretty Woman. Iconic fucking film. The Pretty Woman didn't have to be white. You know what I'm saying? She could have been Asian. She could have been Indian. She could have been anything because pretty women come from every race. But Pretty Woman was based on a white woman. And so many iconic films after. The prerequisite for getting that role was you had to be a certain race. Because that's what they thought would make people want to watch. So now that they're exploiting black people, right?
The first thing that comes to mind with that, to be honest, is the Bond girls.
Absolutely.
That's what comes to mind because
no, you better fucking speak.
Yeah, because the staple of
beauty
cinema back then, when it came to like the action films, was the guy who kicks ass, kills the bad guy, gets the pretty girl, and the pretty girl was white. Always white. I think the first Bond girl that wasn't like by every standard white was the first one with Daniel Craig. She was Spanish or she was Venezuelan, I forget. Mm-hmm. But to be honest, if you're talking that spy genre, the first one that had a black girl predominantly was Austin Powers 3 with motherfucking Beyonce. So Gold stupid. Member.
Yes, absolutely. But even thinking about what you're saying though.
Yeah,
right?
No, that was the staple though. That was the rule of thumb for film. It was.
But like even the first black one, right? Who did it have to be?
And it was in a parody film.
It was fucking Beyonce. Who did it have to be for them to put on fucking screen? It had to be the bitch that was running shit for decades. And they tried for years to strap a blonde lace front on this bitch and name her fucking Bethany. And she said, no, bitch, I'm Beyonce.
Yep.
Who did it have to be?
Yeah.
Like they didn't just go outside and pick. It had to be somebody that they were like, oh, society, the media, everybody already accepts her.
Accepts her already.
She had to work how hard to get that, you know?
Yeah.
So now, when we are at a point where it's like, yes, let's exploit them. It's bad in itself, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it is bad. But to see the silver lining of that, it's opening opportunity.
Yeah. So I agree. No, I agree. And I can't speak from a position of experience, but I look at it from an outsider's in. And I'm like, I agree. Like, yes, I have nothing wrong. I have no wrong opinions of like inclusivity in film, TV shows, whatever. But I really do think there is a line between you're being inclusive and giving opportunity and not even giving opportunity, allowing talent to show. Yes. Like, because I feel like saying giving opportunity is just like a downplaying like term.
Right.
Like, no, you're like
the talent's always been there.
Allowing the talent to come out.
Absolutely.
And then saying, well, we're just going to check a box because we're a studio and we want to make $1 billion and we see the dollar signs and it is what it is.
Yes.
And because when it comes to pop culture, and because of how popular they are now, the easiest place for me to come from are comic book films, because I see like the potential in not just African American representation, but just representation in general in that medium, and where it's not getting brought out, And then I see where it's like, well, like if you really want to have a film where it's based around someone who is not white, you could, Hollywood, here's an idea, create a new character, create a new story. Because originality, because every movie right now, with the grand exception of like maybe 2 at a time, are reboots and sequels. Yeah, absolutely. That's all it is.
Absolutely. Everything's being remade.
That's all it is.
Nothing is being created.
Yes.
And we're all, and honestly, I kind of worry about that and just culture in general. Because, I mean, it's a great time for me to be a double minority. I won't lie. There's a lot of ways to go. It's a great time to be. But in the terms of culture and artistry and things like that, so much because of apps like TikTok, because of, just etc., is being produced all at once. The market of creativity is oversaturated, and so we find these big Hollywood films and etc. They're not writing new shit, and if they are writing new shit, nobody gives a fuck, right? They're going back to the things that they know they can rely on because it has that nostalgic appeal. People are going to buy a ticket. People are going to relate to it because it's what they grew up with. It's what their parents talked about, etc., etc. And they're using that to make money. But once that wears off, where are we going to go?
No, I agree, because that's why, like, you see, so A24, which is the biggest, A24 is probably the biggest independent film studio right now, right? I'd imagine.
I have no idea.
So they're really, they make phenomenal, well, for the most part, they make phenomenal films. They've had a couple duds, but, that studio, their films, and like Blumhouse as well, they predominantly make horror films. Their movies really survive on VOD, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K sales. They don't really make a whole lot of money in the theaters because, again, because I just saw the new Fast and Furious movie, because I sit down, I turn my brain off, and I eat that shit up. Explosions, guns, fist fights, like I am steroids. I'm all about it.
Now, are you talking about Fast and Furious 1, 2, 3, 4,
all
5, 6, or 7?
All of them. I love all of them.
Because that's the letter you described every single
I love all of them. I just saw the 10th one in the theaters. It's so stupid. I recognize how stupid it is. And I'm like, you know what? That was so much fun. But no, but you think about the whole ordeal, like, okay, that movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes. So with previews, it's 240, which means round up, I'm at the theater alone for 3 hours.
Yes.
That's getting food and in my car 3 hours. Wow. Getting there and leaving, let's say another hour, another half an hour. Yes. So I'm gone for almost 4 hours out of my day.
And don't forget the blunt.
Yeah, but so for me, it's a couple glasses of whiskey. But yeah, so I'm spending about 4 hours of my day to do this. I'm spending if it's just myself, I'm spending $20 to $30. If I'm with somebody else, that goes up to 60 or 80. All right. Easily. So it's a investment in both money and time.
Yes.
For the average person, go do that now. It's a lot. Now imagine doing it for a family of 4. God. I couldn't fucking imagine.
Never.
Like, we have this conversation. I couldn't fucking imagine.
You would have to be making a 6-figure salary.
Oh, for real? To do that on a regular basis?
A regular.
Oh, for real. So then it's like, are they going to take a gamble on an independent film of a movie they've never heard of, a cast? Maybe they know the lead actor, or maybe they know the director if they follow it, but like, it's kind of miss and matched now. Yeah. Or are they going to go watch the Marvel movie number 539 that they know is going to be at least fun for the kids? Are they going to go watch Fast and Furious Part 27B that's going to have the recurring character from movie 13? You know, so what are they going to really know? Or are they going to go to the reboot of the Disney franchise that they love?
Exactly.
And you know what kills me? Like so with Disney, I didn't watch the Pinocchio remake with Tom Hanks, but I heard it sucked ass.
Oh my God. Okay.
I heard it was terrible. But then at the same time, we're talking about strictly originality. Yeah. At the same time, Netflix released Guillermo del Toro's version, which was 100, because the Disney one was live action. The Netflix one was 100% stop motion animation. It took 10 years to make.
Oh, wow.
Because every frame is stop motion.
Yes.
And that, I fucking cried my eyes out in that movie. It was moving how good that movie is.
Okay.
And I watched it on Netflix for, not for free, 'cause I pay for the subscription, but like, this is perfect. A perfect representation of what's going on right now. Okay. Play this. Perfect. Make sure the audience can see it. But
absolutely.
Yes.
I think a scenario lots of viewers can relate to is sitting on the couch on a Friday night, going through the streaming services, cycling through the movies, and thinking to themselves, they're not making movies for me anymore. As somebody who's been intimately involved in movie making for 30 years, what are the macro Hollywood conditions behind that sentiment?
Well, so what happened was the DVD was a huge part of our business, of our revenue stream. And technology has just made that obsolete. And so the movies that we used to make, you could afford to not make all of your money when it played in the theater, because you knew you had the DVD coming behind the release, and 6 months later you'd get a whole nother chunk. It would be like reopening the movie almost. And when that went away, that changed the type of movies that we could make. I did this movie Behind the Candelabra, and I talked to a studio executive who explained it was a $25 million movie. I would have to put that much into print and advertising, right, to market it, what we call P&A. So I'd have to put that in P&A. So now I'm in $50 million. I have to split everything I get with the exhibitor, right, the people who own the movie theaters. So I would have to make $100 million before I got into profit. And the idea of making $100 million on a story about like a love affair between these two people, yeah, I love everyone in the movie, but that's suddenly a massive gamble in a way that it wasn't in the 1990s when they were making all those kind of movies, the kind of movies that I loved and the kind of movies that were my bread and butter.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is the perfect way. I don't have anything to add. Like, that's the perfect way to put it. So that's why I get so excited when I really do make an effort to go out and see films that aren't the franchise ones. Yeah. But then I'm very protective of my time. And I'm like, what if I sit down? Like, I went and watched a movie called Beau is Afraid. A24 movie, Joaquin Phoenix. He's an amazing actor. And the director is Ari Aster, a great horror film director. That's why I went to see it, because I trust those two. Yeah. And there was a moment, it's a 3-hour movie. There's a moment about 2 hours in where I just sat with my head in my hands because it was so boring.
Oh.
And I was like, fuck, what is going on?
In the theater?
Yeah. I was like, what is going on? Oh, and then finally it picked up and the last act was phenomenal. But I'd imagine for most people, I can do that as a just myself.
Yeah.
I didn't lose a whole lot. I went with somebody, but I didn't lose a whole lot.
Right.
But imagine if for some reason I was a husband coming with my wife and a kid.
Yes.
And I just dropped $100 or so to go watch a movie and I'm fucking bored for 30. That was the longest, I'll be honest, out of all my theater experiences, that was the longest 30 minutes of my life. Now imagine if I was a husband with a wife and a kid, and I'm like, fuck, I wasted all this money. The kid's bored. The wife's angry. Maybe she was mad at me because of the fight beforehand. And you know what I mean? It's all these things that go into it that culminate to what Matt Damon just fucking said.
Absolutely. I mean, I never thought about that perspective. Because I'm usually the wife in that scenario. But
I can't wait to have you back, dude. You're a fucking riot. Oh my God.
But I would have to agree with you and to speak to what you just said and to, also touch on what Matt Damon said. I think another aspect to all of this, right, is the way that media is made now and turned around. Like whether we're making our own personal media, like what we're doing right now, TikTok creators, people on Instagram, etc. Things are turned around so fast. Back in the day, back in our parents' generation, there was an urgency to see movies. Not only because it cost a nickel for the movie and like 2 cents for the popcorn. But if you didn't see that movie, bitch, you had to wait like 2-3 years for that shit to come out on VHS. And then we got DVD, but you still had to wait a year.
Yeah.
Now it's like how
3
you
months,
said
4 months.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
And like how you said, for people who are like protective over their time or who are like, okay, I have to spread myself so thin, split myself in all these different areas, the movie can fucking wait, bitch. I'm paying all this money to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Why do I gotta go to the theater? Like it's gonna be
and I was
right here. I didn't go see what's her name? What's that bitch?
Oh,
Avengers.
Wanda?
Yes. I didn't
Doctor Strange too.
Yes. I didn't go. I didn't care. I didn't go see her because
Yeah.
I didn't even like. I think Wanda is the weakest Avenger. Not the weakest.
You're so wrong.
I won't say the weakest. That was a portrait.
Her representation has not been great as her powers go.
She's
but
the most. Can I say pussy? She's the most pussy. I'm sorry. Because as strong as she is, she don't do shit with her fucking powers. And so I wasn't gonna go pay to see her fucking do nothing. When I'm paying all an arm and a leg and my fucking left nut worth of semen to fucking pay for Disney Plus.
And it came out on Disney Plus, 2 months later?
2 months later, it felt like nothing.
Yeah. Well,
it felt like nothing.
And so a great example of that too is the Shazam that just came out.
Yes.
We already knew, if you wanted to look for it, you already knew the date that you could rent Shazam on Amazon Prime.
Yes.
Before it was in the theater. And that's one of the first, I think that's the first superhero movie. Because let's say it really started in 2008 with Iron Man. Because we had Toby when we were kids, but we couldn't drive. So really because in 2008 was the first Iron Man with Robert Downey. Mm-hmm. Since 2008, the second Shazam was the first superhero movie that I didn't go see in theaters. Wow. Because I knew it was going to be dog shit, which turned out to be dog shit apparently. But I also knew that I could just rent it 2 months later anyway.
Yes.
And I'm a dork, so I got to go buy it. And I want to see an IMAX. I want to see the biggest screen possible and do all that stuff. But I couldn't justify that because of how lazy they have gotten.
Yeah, but then also when you think about seeing it in your own home, you
could pause it.
And you can pause it. You go to the bathroom, eat whatever you want, get your pussy ate. It's like everything that you could do.
If you're watching this and you are of age, you have not had a sex break during a good movie, you're a fucking liar.
Come on. Come on. You ever been in the theater getting topped off and that motherfucking goddamn light come on in your fucking face? Hey, what are you doing? What's going on over there? You gotta try to fucking... No, what? But in the privacy of your own home...
Yeah.
Come on. You can get everything done, scream as loud as you want to. And you know what I mean?
Jesus Christ. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's I will say to kind of wrap this all together, I'm glad that because I want to have you back.
Yes, I would love to.
This has been a fucking pleasure.
I love it here.
This has been a pleasure.
Oh my God.
I'm glad that we could have a good, like, nuanced conversation where we both had our minds up a little bit about representation and, like, because genuinely, like, I don't look at that from a place of, like, they're letting black people into movies. What the fuck? Because there are people like that.
Absolutely.
There are, which is really shitty.
Yes.
But I look at that where I'm like, no, like, you're doing it in spaces that, like, and that's really what tipped me off was with the Black Superman, because I was like, well, please do that with a character that's already the Black Superman. We have that. I've been reading about him. Like, I have the books. Like, can we please do it with what we already have?
Yep.
And don't just pander to the masses and intentionally piss other people off and just do all this nonsense. Like, care about the characters you have. And care about the audience that you, because at the end of the day, the audience that you want to spend their hard, or especially today with how the economy is and inflation, all this nonsense, the audience that makes up the majority of the revenue you make, they are not rich.
Not at all.
So take care of your audience.
Yeah.
And guess what? The majority of your audience by demographic isn't fucking white. So if you're going to pander to the people of color, do them justice.
Yeah.
Like, do them justice. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, there's so many superheroes and characters, not even in the action or superhero genre, that we don't know about that could have actors behind them and names attached to them. And again, you know, I think it speaks to how we have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And I mean, to touch on what we saw from that Matt Damon video, though, you know, maybe it's a big risk for these Hollywood franchises and studios and productions to go through, because like he broke it down. It's like, you got to get to $100 million before we even start considering profit. Yeah. So why the fuck are we going to sit here and invest all this money in a character people don't even really know about, you know? Like, it's like, yeah, we can make a movie about Batman. Excuse me. We can make a movie about Batwing.
You are right. You are right, though.
Authentic character, right?
Like the Bat IP. You're right. Yeah.
But it's like, what's going to draw the masses? You know what? Why don't we go ahead and make Batman black?
Yeah.
Everybody already knows who Batman is. They can relate to him. They have a connection to him. But seeing him as a black character is something that's never been done before, right? It's totally unique and creative. It's gonna, you know, whatever. And then the controversy, because racism is still alive and well.
And they pander to racism.
Absolutely. Racism is a selling tactic. Yeah. It is. Because it is still alive and well. Yes. It still does exist. It still is I won't say very fresh, but it's still there.
No, it's still
healthy.
there.
Racism is healthy, especially in America. So we know that the racism exists. Why don't we start stirring up the controversy? Ooh, now we got people talking on Instagram. Now we got people making TikToks about it. Now we got this. Now we got that. The marketing is doing itself in a way that it wouldn't be done if we made it as this obscure black character that we wrote about in the 50s and the 60s when nobody even wanted to buy stories about a black protagonist. So I get why they do it. And that's why I said, absolutely, they're exploiting us. But, you know, it does... it opens the doors, and we got to let those doors be open. We got to be able to walk down those halls, right? And accept it for a little bit. But, you know, once we get down those halls, we're going to open more doors where it's like, okay, this isn't exploiting. Now we can start writing new stories. Now we can start thinking about the future and new characters that are written this way, not to pander, but because it's normal now. Just like how it was when we wrote the first story about Superman.
Well fucking said, dude. Well said. This has been an absolute pleasure. We're taking a little break from the podcast come June. And I'm supposed to be booking out for July and August this week, but I've been lazy as fuck.
Oh.
So,
Well, any gaps you need to fill, please.
yes.
Call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on.
I cannot wait to have you back. Good fucking God. I can't wait to have you back, man. This has been an absolute blast. I need to come up with new words because this has been so much fun.
I loved it.
Thank you.
This is so iconic. You should feel both of you guys, you should feel very, very, very proud of yourself.
Thank you.
This is super sick. I thought we was just gonna be like holding the mic, sitting on the damn couch, But from the vibe that I got from you when I first met you, I was down to even do just that. I love talking to you. I love that you have an open mind. You're not afraid to challenge the way that people think. I think what you're doing for media, I think what you're doing for people's perspective, and even for the culture of podcasting is very, very, very important. And I love the whole vibe. Please, never hesitate. If you need a substitute, a gap, someone cancels on you, or you actually want a guest or whatever, I would love to be back. Talking to you is so fucking easy, and I bet it's even easier to listen to you. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Fuck. Thank you very much, man. I don't have anything else to say. Thank you. That means the world. Thank you so much. I will get you scheduled again. And this has been so much fun. And there is so much we haven't even talked about. Yeah. I know it.
I know. Well, we only touched 2 things that I answered on that question. I was hoping that I could tell you about the time that I fisted a man in the women's bathroom while getting my dick sucked in Dallas. But, maybe for the next episode.
That is part 2, ladies and gentlemen. That's what that is. Oh, thank you, guys. Fucking Christ. I can't even, do the outro. That's hilarious. What the fuck? Woo. All right. This has been a pleasure. Yes. Thank you so much, dude. And thank you all for listening and watching as usual. And we will see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.
Mwah.
Oh, my God. Roll that out.